You first.
Okay. I'm Karen Ambrose, a teacher at W.E.B. Du Bois High School.
And my name is Kevin Ronnie, and I'm a community organizer. And I've been working on education issues for the last couple of years. And I'm specifically working to provide support to new small high schools like Du Bois.
Cool. What are y'all opinions on the students that go to those small schools?
Well, I came to Du Bois in its second year of operation, so I chose to come over there. And the first week of school, I asked the class in front of me, how many of you chose this high school? And almost all of them said that they hadn't chose the school. And so that took me, I was like, oh, I thought I was coming to a place where everybody wanted to be there. And that's not the case. So that brings with it a lot of challenges and problems because we're all starting out with different ideas of what we wanted at a school, and so you can't come together as a community sometimes.
Well, I don't spend every day in classrooms with you. I'm outside in the community. I'm talking to people about your schools. I spend time talking to teachers at your schools about your schools. So I don't spend a lot of time in classrooms with you. But the thing about the small high schools that excites me is the thing that you talked about, is that although some of the small schools have had trouble pulling in students that have chosen to go there, as these schools get more established, you get more and more students that pick the schools because they want to be there. And all of a sudden something starts happening. You have people that want to be together. You start forming a culture. You start forming an environment where students and teachers really become family. And I have this. I'm not a teacher. I'm not an educational professional. Okay, but I do have a belief, and my belief is that education works best when the people in the building want to be there, and they want to be there because they connect with one another. They care about one another. They are interested in one another. And that works for both the teachers and the students with the teachers. And what excites me is what I'm seeing at more and more of the small high schools. It's not perfect, and it's not working everywhere, but it's starting to click in a lot of these new small high schools. You really have environments where teachers and students see one another as partners in education. It's not that old idea of teachers standing in front of the room, flipping pages on a textbook and reading out of it and expecting you to sort of like to, take notes and then take a test every 2 weeks to prove what you don't know. It's much more exciting than that, and I actually think it's the future for education. We've take a look around Milwaukee and you'll see a lot of schools that have got a lot of problems. And it's not because teachers don't care, and it's not because students don't want to learn. I mean, there's always exceptions to both of those statements, but it's really because we've got schools that the schools that I grew up in. I'm almost 50 years old. You guys, what, 15, 16, 17? There's a lot of years between us. It's a different world. When I grew up, the phones had rotary dials. There were three TV channels on my TV. There was no such thing as iPods, computers, personal computers, cell phones. You guys have a totally different world than what I grew up with. Why is it that we're surprised that the schools that we had 50 years ago aren't working as well for kids like you today? And what's exciting for me is that I do get to spend time in your schools, and I actually get to see young people like you that are excited about education, that have got plans, that have got a future. And that's what's important to me, and that's why I'm doing this work, is because I think unless we really get serious about building schools where students and teachers are partners, we're going to continue to see lots and lots of kids who don't make it. And that's a crime. It really is. So that's what I'm about.
I have a question for Ms. Ambrose. It's clear that W.E.B. Du Bois, along with two other schools, are in a building that had one of the most highest dropout rates as a bigger school. So do you feel that W.E.B. Du Bois, what do you think the future of W.E.B. Du Bois will be? You think it'll be a success after the first and second graduating class?
I think building what we want our school to be is going to take a long time. And it's frustrating for all of us involved because I wish it could be there now. But there's so many things that I would like to see change, but change happens slowly. So it is going to take a while. And the other thing that sort of relates to when you ask about students and the dropout rate and things like that, you're living in a different world, different culture than what I grew up in, or Kevin did, and we need to figure out how to make education work for you today. And then I think we'll address that dropout rate a little bit. If we can find a way to make education more real to you. I'm struggling. Sometimes I think I get it, and then sometimes it doesn't work. And then there's things from the outside, like you know, district requirements and all this. You know, it amazes me how much the schedule, the bell schedule, drives everything we do. Lunch, when you guys have lunch, affects what kind of classes we can give you guys. You know, little things that you think are stupid, but those things make some of the decisions about how we're learning or what kind of classes we can have. How teachers can work together. Like, I would love to collaborate with another teacher to maybe, so that you can see that social studies and math go together. That you know, we could do things that cross over your classes, and the schedule doesn't allow me to do that. So a lot of things are holding us back from doing some of the things that we'd love to see change that I think would make it more real for you.
Okay, I've got a question about that. Now, Du Bois is a charter school, right?
Yes.
Are there, I mean, the whole idea behind charter is that you're supposed to be able to have more control over this, the teacher's supposed to have more control over the school environment. Has that not been working for you?
No, there's so many things that affect us, that we make decisions on, you know, that come from either the district level, require course code requirements, you know, the grading system affects that we can't have a course. How can we have a course that doesn't, when you're scheduling kids, you can't get kids scheduled into a class and have them also be in this other class so that they can work together. Because once you start having certain numbers, once you start going up to, we only have 300 students, and even with that number, it's a scheduling nightmare to figure out how to put kids into certain classes where they could be, you know, flow into other classes or things like that. So many times our decisions are, and it's not always coming from, it's just logistics. How do you do it? How do you do it with the numbers we have? And so those questions are still getting us.
I got a question. Do you think a smaller school gives better education than a bigger school?
I worked at Marshall when it was a large high school years ago. And the one big difference that I saw coming in as a teacher was that I'd step out in that hallway. I knew my 30 kids that were in my room, but I get out in that hallway and it's just a zoo of strangers and try to ask them to do something. You know, they don't know who I am, I don't know who they are, so it was very hard to feel like I was a part of that. So as far as the community aspect, the small schools, I step out in my hallway, I can see somebody down at the end of the hallway and I know who he is, and I can say, hey you know, and I know exactly who to call and things. So that makes it nicer that and they stop me and they can say something to me in the hallways and things. So that's really good. But as far as the learning, the classroom, we haven't had enough changes in our school yet that were any different. We still have all the different courses just like a regular high school, and sometimes the class sizes are too big. Beginning of this year we had 36, I had 38 kids in a class. And it was just a scheduling problem, but it was too impossible for me to teach. Right.
You got a question?
All right. So what do you think you can improve or change about the school?
What can I do personally?
Well,
Yeah. Or what can we do? I mean, we are working day and night to try to make slow changes and to get at things. Like, for example, we are talking about portfolios. And right now that doesn't mean that much to you because we haven't made it a part of your classes as much as we should. But down the road, you know, you're going to be putting all of your work together in a portfolio. Those are we're making little steps to getting to a different kind of education where that portfolio will mean more to you than getting grades and your grade point average. But the world today still wants you to have a grade point average. But we want to show you how you can learn in different ways and demonstrate what you know in different ways. And so we're making little changes, but it's frustrating for me because we're not making those changes fast enough either.
This is a question for both of y'all. I know you hear a lot of reports about like school fights and people bringing guns up to the fights. Like, how does that affect you? What do you think about like the whole thing, about all that's going on in different high schools, small and big, community-wise, right?
Well, I mean, I have two answers to that. One is I know what the public perception is. And the public perception is that schools in Milwaukee are out of control. That's what people think. But that's what, you know, frankly, very few people actually go into schools and take a look around.
Is that what you think?
It's not what I think. But then I've actually spent time in schools. You know, I've seen disruption in schools, and I know what happens, and I know there's some situations that are pretty bad, that, you know, require security police, or the security guards to get involved, or get the police involved. That's the exception. Majority of the schools, the majority of the time, are safe. That's my perception. Now, and it's certainly my perception about the small schools that I've been in. I have not had a bad experience in any of the small schools that I've been to, okay? Now, granted, I'm not there all the time, and I don't see everything you guys see, okay? And I know that different times of the year are worse. I know that the beginning of school year can be tough as new kids are getting integrated into the environment. But what I'm seeing with the small schools, by and large, is they've got a pretty good handle on issues like that. Now, that's my opinion.
Ambrose?
I do feel, I've always felt safe at school, you know, no matter what. I feel there's enough, I always feel I've seen students who will step in and get involved and help in a situation. They don't want to see fights. There are people who will try to break things up and try to stop things, or students who will tell, you know, hey, I heard somebody, you know, is thinking about doing something. And so I always feel that there's enough good people around to outweigh the bad stuff, which is what gets the press and everybody knows about. Are those bad things getting in the way of our learning? Yes, that it is a problem. But it's because our philosophy is that we are going to teach every child. And if we have that philosophy, then we have to figure out how are we going to teach the child who comes from a rough home where guns and violence are a part of their daily lives. Do they belong in the same school where maybe you go or you don't believe that kind of a thing? I don't know what the answer is yet because we haven't figured that out. But we have to find a way to be open to all students learning, but we also have to find a way to let them know that some things aren't acceptable. And that's a challenge we try to do every day of getting across to kids what's acceptable in school and what's not.
Oh,
That's it.